It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I am Tom Papa, and I am breaking bread with you. If only you could reach through the metaverse. That's what's going to happen. We're going to go to the metaverse, and we're going to end up breadless. People are just going to be eating fake little digital bread things and being like, we're breaking it. Look at us. We're having fun and relating. We were born at the right time. Great show for you today. We have Anthony Giglio on the program, returning. You may remember Anthony's a good friend of mine. We became pals years ago through my cousin Jimmy. And we all united in all things Italian and New York and wine and food. And Anthony is I would like to call him, I don't think he would put this on his resume, but I'll call him our own breaking bread sommelier. He knows everything there is to know about wine, and we have a great conversation today. I figured as we're going into summertime, let's break out of a rut and see what Anthony can teach us about how we should be celebrating and enjoying ourselves and what we should be drinking more than anything. And I have to say, he possibly, I haven't acted on it, but you'll see during this conversation, he may have opened my mind. He has opened my mind to the possibility of introducing white wine to my roster. I know. It sounds blasphemous to even say it out loud, but the things he described, the way he described it, this is what's good about a sommelier who knows what they're talking about. They know exactly what it is and exactly how to relate it. And I have a little free time today, and I'm thinking maybe I do go to the wine shop and follow up on what he actually was talking about. But he made it seem so refreshing and so filled with fruit and joy that, well, you'll just have to listen. See if he sways you too. And if you are a white wine drinker, you'll be like, yeah, Tom, I'm saying this to you for a while. Well, I don't know. I'm still not sold. This program is brought to you by what? Oh, look at this sponsor, tompapa.com. Wow. He bought ads on his own podcast because we have a lot of shows coming up. This Friday, July 1st, Ryan Hamilton and I are in San Diego doing a co-headlining show, which is very exciting. Then we've got July 16th at the Borgata in Atlantic City, which is a perfect summertime show. And then all through the end of July and August, we are hitting a bunch of clubs as I put the final touches on what will be my recording for my new Netflix special. And that will be happening in September. I will be announcing where and how you can come to that if you'd like to for the next Netflix taping. Probably next week, I'll let you all know about that. But hitting places like Salt Lake City and Brea, California, and the Improv in Tempe, Arizona, and hitting Hawaii, even going to Hawaii. That would be nice to know that we have people in Hawaii listening to Breaking Bread. I had poke last night, which was my daughter's favorite. You can't deny a nice bowl of rice and beautiful fish and pineapples. Nothing wrong with that. Not a thing I'm making all the time, but I'll eat it. What's interesting to me is that all these poke places in LA they just have that, and there's got to be more to Hawaiian cuisine than just a poke bowl, but that's the only thing on the menu in all of these places. Someone's got to open a Hawaiian joint that combines tiki drinking, boozing it up with zombies and scorpions, with all of the other parts of Hawaiian cuisine. I mean, there's lots of different stuff when I go over there, isn't there? I'm not just eating burritos. Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe this will be our big food tour when we go to Hawaii and perform at the House of Blues over there in September. That would be exciting. And then we also announced a whole bunch of dates coming up in the fall into the winter. We have this little pause right now that we're in where I can just kind of pat around the house and go to a wine shop and make dinner for friends. Just this little sliver. And then we're going to be going back at it. We're going to Boston at the Wilbur. We've got a run of 2 shows, 2 nights in Texas, San Antonio, and someplace else. We've got Chico, California. We've got a whole bunch of dates that we just released and just announced. So go to tompapa.com for all of that. All right, let's jump right in because this is a great conversation. Anthony really knows his stuff. He's going to be joining me hopefully in August when my family meets at the Jersey Shore and starts making our own tomato sauce like the Italians are supposed to do. Anthony's grandmother does it as well. And it's just an excuse for him to bring me some wine, really. He also created Super Salt, which is this amazing salt. I don't know if you remember from the last time he was on. It's this herbed salt. It's garlic and thyme and just like this amazing process. And he finally, it was like his lifelong goal to actually figure it out, and he did. And I keep it on my counter. And it's called Super Salt, and you really should get some. I just can't stop putting it on everything that I make. Anthony also, you can follow him on Instagram at anthonygiglio.com. It's Giglio. And also go to anthonygiglio.com for, at Anthony Giglio for Instagram, and then anthonygiglio.com. for all of his stuff. He's a great writer, too. I mean, you'll tell just from the way he describes stuff, you'll want to read his writing. Food and Wine and a bunch of places. Wherever anybody has ever written about wine and food, Anthony has been a part of it. And he's hilarious, which makes him perfect for our show. Not only does he know stuff and he loves all this food and wine, but he's also pretty damn funny. All right, enjoy this conversation, and we're off. Okay. Welcome back, Anthony. Good to see you.
Hey, Tom. I'm so happy to be back here with you, man.
I know. This is so cool. We're coming into summertime. I don't go by the calendar, by the autumnal equinox, spring solstice bullshit. I go Memorial Day. It's summer. Let me just start celebrating.
It's when you put your white jeans on, like every Guido in New Jersey. Come on, man. It's time to bring out the white jeans.
And I was thinking about you because I was in New Jersey. I had some shows in New York last week, which I've got to make sure to tell you when I'm coming in and doing those shows because we should go hang out at the cellar and stuff.
Well, I was looking on your calendar and I was in Aspen. Sorry to be fancy, but I was away.
Whoa.
Sorry.
So what are you doing in Aspen in the summer?
We're not skiing. It's the Food and Wine Classic, which I think it's next year will be its 40th anniversary. And I was there for my 26th. I don't know how that's possible, but 26 in a row, man. Pretty crazy.
So were you talking? Were you attending? What happens at the
Speaking,
Food and Wine Classic?
I am a speaker.
Ooh, fancy.
Let me loosen my bow tie here. I'm thrilled that they put me on the stage 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
I used to go as press, but I filled in for someone who had to bail at the last minute, and it was actually in front of wine editor Letty Teague, who's now the wine critic at the Wall Street Journal, and she liked what she heard and invited me back, and they haven't stopped inviting me.
That's amazing. That is so cool. All right, I definitely want to hear more about that. But let me just set the summer stage for us, because I don't know if you're into this kind of thing, but in August, I will be taking my sister's tomatoes from City Green up in Clifton, and we're gonna. I know we talked about this a little bit. We're gonna be making our own sauce under the house, classic old Ginzo style. We're gonna have the big pots, and we're gonna be canning. If you want to take a drive down to the Jersey Shore, I'll have a tank top ready for you. And you can come stir some sauce and say hello. That'll be like August, like early August.
I will be there, and if you want to come up and can with the Sicilians, my mother-in-law and her crew, will be doing it probably like the third week they start. They wait a little. They want the tomatoes a little more ripe.
Yeah, I know. I hope we're not pushing it. I literally just got a text that the first tomato of the season just came off the farm,
Oh
so they're
wow.
just starting to pop. And I literally just got that from my niece. And yeah, I hope that we're not pushing it, but it just happens to fall that I have a wedding to go to, and that's when I'm going to be in Long Beach Island. So,
That's fantastic. I'm totally taking you up on that.
all right, cool. And then yeah, we have some pizza stuff to do. We have a lot of stuff on the calendar. But here we go. For our listeners, and why I wanted you to come on, just as we're coming into a new season, to give our listeners some ideas of some wines and some foods and some good things to pair it with. Last time you were on, the biggest takeaway, other than the wines that I went searching for, and I think about, it's funny, like when a comedian does a bit, for some reason, you listen to all this comedy, and for some reason, someone says one thing about a spare tire or something, and it just sticks with you forever. When you talked about when you tell people to drink some wine and now just take a potato chip,
Yep.
and just take a bite of a potato chip and drink that wine again. Now that's in my head all the time. That whenever I pour a glass of wine, I'm now eating like tons of chips, which I know isn't the goal of it.
Well,
But
so
I think about you and I think about chips, and then I'm off to the races.
and Tom, that's how I democratize it, just to say, like, the truth is, I say fat plus salt, which
Right.
could be in everything, right? Like, at the top of the hierarchy would be a great hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. But if all that's in the pantry is a bag of chips, breadsticks with sesame seeds, although that's not
Yeah.
ideal, but like anything, I always say your peanut butter in the pinky jar will change everything. Because that's all
Yeah.
I do, a little fat and salt, and then the wine completely blooms in a different way.
Yeah, completely different. Does it make it better, or it just changes it?
Uh, I would say, I'm supposed to say it doesn't change it,
Mm-hmm.
or make it better. But the truth is, if I had to guess how many people have reacted over the years to this, 90% of the people would say I prefer it after the chip. Meaning,
Yeah.
is it just as good before? I always say this: if you like the wine by itself before food,
Yeah.
congratulations, you're going to love it with food. But
Mhm.
for me, it's more about people say, I don't like this.
Right.
You just poured me a Riesling, and I'm a cab guy, and I'm like,
Right.
that's great, but can you do me a favor, just take a bite of this chip, and then we'll talk about that again. And then
Yeah.
their hair goes up, like, holy, I can't believe it that this tastes so much
Yeah.
better. And I'm like, that's all it takes. It's just open
It's
your,
just it's just opening up all of your senses
yeah,
in your
I
mouth,
think,
right? Your
well,
taste buds are just
yeah,
right.
yeah, especially it on the white side, it gives the acidity something to grab onto, because when you just sip a wine by itself, like two, and I say two sips, right? The first sip doesn't count. Second sip, you start to feel the acid literally between your teeth, along your gums, or roof of your mouth. You start to tingle and you start to feel drier and drier and drier.
Mm-hmm.
But when you add a little fat, the acid has something to play with, and it makes everything just expand and last longer. And
Right.
in red wine, it's the fat is calming tannin, the bitter puckery sensation. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just about coating the palate, and
Right.
it actually lets the wine do a little bit more in your mouth
Right.
before it disappears.
Wow, what a great description. I've never even thought to ask it or have heard it described that way. That's perfect. All I just
Thank you.
hear is you're just drinking this, eat that.
Yeah,
That is great. All right, and now another reason why I'm excited that you're on, because we are in summer, and I am traditionally all in on red wine. I love Chateauneuf de Pape. I love Barolos. I love Bordeaux. I love some California, but it's always been red. And whenever I hear people write like that white doesn't count, I've always been like, yeah, forget those white wine drinkers. But I have to say, I'm open to changing my mind this season, because as much as I love red wine on a hot day, it's tough to pop open a big.
Well, right. Well, I was gonna say, like that. You give me two paths to take here.
Okay.
The first is, before we throw red overboard, can we
Uh-huh.
talk about how we talk about red in my house, which is there's the high acid, low tannin reds, and
Uh-huh.
then the reds that you described. Every single red you just named is the high tannin, high alcohol reds. Like, those are the
Right.
big,
Yeah.
powerful. mouth-filling, warming reds. But there's a whole other category hiding in plain sight that probably is the biggest side of it is Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir, would be the lightest of reds in common wine speak, right? But I want to take it a little geekier and say, if you go to any wine shop and just say super high acid red for summer, they know what you're talking about, and they're going to turn you on to Gamay, Beaujolais, really good Beaujolais. So like, Tom, you and I grew up during the Beaujolais Nouveau craze of the 90s, which was garbage wine, complete party wine. In France, it's not taken seriously at all. It's just a party wine for harvest day. It's like Halloween for winos. But we of course, being insecure and bougie and aspirational, turned it into this grand, the great Beaujolais Nouveau day. And
it's coming out. Here we go. They're here. They're finally here. But that being said, I know that. But this past winter, I had some. Like, they just had it at the shop, and I grabbed it, and it was really delightful.
Yeah, but and Beaujolais Nouveau is delightful. So let me back up and say I'm not trashing. I'm saying that's a party wine, literally. And the rule in France, by the way, Tom, is that Beaujolais Nouveau comes out literally on the calendar the third Thursday of November every year, and that's when you see all the ads here, like le Beaujolais est arrivé, blah 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 blah. But the joke in France is, if you still have it in your house by Christmas Eve, make vinaigrette, because it's not to be taken. There's no age on it. It's just like literally bottled grape juice that's barely fermented. But the real stuff comes out in the spring, and that's when you get what they call the Cru Beaujolais, and those are like there's the 10 village names. It's something to Google. But for lunch, and this goes back to dating my wife. We were at Soho Steak. You and I hung out in the neighborhood, and years passed over on Thompson Street, and we're sitting on the sidewalk, and I, of course, not being a wine geek yet, I order a Cabernet, and it's 150 degrees on the sidewalk, and the Cabernet is 150 degrees because they don't have it chilled. And then a French couple sits next to us and orders oysters, champagne, and Brouilly, Brouilly, which is one of the 10 crus of Beaujolais. And I was kind of like thinking, like, baller move, 2 people ordering 2 bottles of wine at the same time.
Yeah.
And then so the champagne, and in the bucket is the champagne and the Brouilly. And when he presents the Brouilly, it's dripping with sweat. It's like how my people drink everything out of the fridge. My grandparents, like, the gallon was in the fridge of the Fortissimo. So I said to the waiter, I'm like, excuse me. And by the way, we're basically sitting next to each other because, in New York, the tables are a fist apart. So I call the waiter to the other side of me. I'm like, how do they get the chilled red and we get the boiled Cabernet? And he goes, the French, they know how to order. Like,
that hurts.
But I went home and did my homework, and
that gave you a quest. It probably built your whole career.
You chill, and in France, the Beaujolais in the summer is chilled in the ice bucket with the champagne. Like, you could leave it in there, and because it's so low in tannin and so high in acid, it can take the cold and not tighten up or close up or not fall apart. You put a Cabernet in the ice bucket for half an hour, it's going to be a tannic closed monster.
Right.
But the good news is anyone that's too cold will warm up. The bad news is, Tom, if we are ordering dinner and someone brings us a 100-degree bottle of red, what are we going to do? We can't put ice in there, not in front of me anyway.
Yeah, no.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't power chill it that fast. Food's going to, all I say is that the red wine is too cold, it's a good problem. But when it's too warm, you got to do some work. By the way, can I give a freebie to everyone listening?
Yes, please.
Instead of ice cubes, frozen grapes. I keep Ziploc bags of frozen grapes in my freezer. And when friends come over, we're outside, I literally just pop a few in the glass. I mean, they're on brand. I mean, it's made with grapes.
Yeah.
It's not like those plastic refreezable flamingos you could buy at Pottery Barn or whatever. But these are frozen grapes, and you can put red or green, whatever you want, and they're edible, tossable, or if you're my grandmother, they're refreezable. I mean,
And what do you toss them in?
Into the wine. I'm saying if your wine is warm, if you're outside, any wine, you can't hurt it because frozen grapes don't have any, they're not going to leach any water into the wine. They're literally adding ice without ice. Makes sense?
Brilliant.
Yeah. And they're completely on brand. I mean, people take that and people are like, what are we having, sangria? I'm like, I just chilled your wine for you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. So what are the other reds that you would have in the summertime?
So I'm really, really keen, and you're not going to be surprised here, on Etna Rosso from Sicily, and that's a category. So in Sicily, Mount Etna is its own distinct region, and on Mount Etna there's only Etna Rosso, Etna Red, or Etna Bianco, Etna White, and both are delicious. By the way, Tom, add the white to the other column you want to talk about, because The reds are made with a grape called Nerello Mascalese, and they're often compared to great red Burgundy, which equals Pinot Noir. So they're high acid, low tannin, chillable, gulpable deliciousness. And then the whites are from a grape called Caricante. That's really, really beautiful. And literally one of the few wines I've ever agreed when, wine snobby reviewers say, oh, this is has great salinity about this wine. I'm like, who thinks of salt in their wine? But this, when you swirl them, you actually smell the sea, because they're upwind of all the marine air around them, and they actually take it on.
In both of them, in the Rosso?
No, in the whites. The Caricante is just, it seems to take it on, really. It's interesting.
Oh, it is interesting.
But so Etna Rosso, I would say anything. I told you Gamay, and there's you could buy Gamays around the world. California has beautiful Gamay, but the grape is Gamay. But Gamay, like all of us, for all of us Americans, the big problem is we speak grapes, go to Europe, and mostly their addresses, just like Etna Rosso is an address. You're not going to find Nerello Mascalese. You're just going to say Etna Rosso. Gamay's address in Europe is Beaujolais, which is a place. And then all those little village names are, addresses that are more specific. So Bruyères, Chénat, Côte de Bruyères, Régny, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But all you have to do is go to a wine shop, just say any good Beaujolais, by the way, any good Beaujolais. And they'll say, sure. And they're going to have Beaujolais Nouveau. They're going to have Beaujolais Village, which is a blend of all the villages. But good Beaujolais, you can find really, really great ones.
Village is a combination of all
it's a blend of the villages. Yeah.
Oh, that's
so those 10 crus, let's call them villages, even though they're not really. It's more complex than that. But 10 village names. But the Beaujolais Village means it's from all over the place.
Crus means the premiere of that year.
Yeah, the cru would be the special designation. So they're saying like this area, Bruyères, you get we're going to call you a cru Beaujolais. So that area around Bruyères, Côte de Bruyères. So all the different village names are classified by a cru system. So they're the 10 crus, and they're ranked from lightest to biggest. So like you'll always find around Valentine's Day, they always have Saint Amour on menus, and Saint Amour is Cru Beaujolais from one of the bigger crus, like from one of the so Moulin à Vent and Saint Amour are like the most like Pinot Noir, actually, even though they're Gamay. But they're and by the way, this area is south of Burgundy, so like it's southern part of Burgundy. I mean, so you start to see an overlap into Pinot Noir, like into Burgundy, how the wines taste. It's interesting.
It is interesting. So
Pinot Noir from everywhere.
But when you have a label, when you have a winery and they have their whatever their wine is, and then they have the cru, I always thought that just meant like a higher level of a better
depending
wine.
on the so that's Burgundy, where the cru matters, like it's Premier Cru, Grand Cru. Those are distinctions. You never see them on American bottles, obviously. So in France, that means something depending on the region, and to make it more confusing, it's different in Bordeaux than it is in Burgundy. So you think you're buying higher in one, but it's really lower in the other, and it's maddening. I don't dig that deep with my people, because it's already confusing enough just talking.
Right.
When I say, so you like Chardonnay, you love Burgundy, and they're like, no, I said Chardonnay, and I'm like, right, I'm not talking about the color of the wine. Burgundy has two grapes, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So white Burgundy, red Burgundy.
Right.
See, it's like blah, 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 like the cartoon, like,
right.
It's just hard to keep it all straight.
Nerello Mascalese.
Yes, exactly.
This is the wine that I've been drinking. This Lato Soup.
Cut it out.
I love this.
What are the odds? Can we tell everyone that we did not plan this?
Yeah,
that's a mind meld. Tom, that's a mind meld.
Because my people part of my people come from Sicily, so I'm always interested in like finding a really good Sicilian wine, and I found this label.
So. Tom, turn it around and show me again. Can you show me the back, the back label? I want to see who brings it in. It's
Kermit Lynch.
So what's really super interesting about that label is that it tells you the grape, which is definitely for the American market, because in Italy they would not put it on the label.
Oh, really?
Right. I told you they don't usually give you the grape; they just give you Etna Rosso. But this is giving you the grape, so that's super interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
I wish they all did that. I wish they all did that for us.
It's a really nice one.
Lato Soup. Yeah, I've had that once or twice.
Yeah.
But I could, whenever I bring groups to Sicily on tours, we go to a bunch of wineries all over Etna, and it's just a lot of fun, man. I'm
Oh,
actually
that's
planning my
great.
next tour for next June.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
If anybody wants to come, just email me.
Okay, so let's distill. We've been doing a lot of talking, so let's distill just for our listeners. If you are uh, going out tonight into the wine shop and you've got red on your mind in your summertime fun, we should be telling them go for Beaujolais or just
If
or just ask.
if you want to be that specific, sure.
Uh-huh.
I say a good Beaujolais. I want the good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't give me the bad Beaujolais. I want the
Right.
good Beaujolais.
Give me the good stuff.
But Tom, honestly, here's what I say to everybody: go in and say, I need some chillable, high acid red, chillable, because you're going to take
Chillable.
it home and you're going to chill the you know what out of it.
Right.
And then you could taste it as it warms up, and you'll see how it changes. But totally fine. But if you just say chillable, high acid red, summer sipping, they get it. They're going to take you right to the wines around the shop that are super light.
And would you, for your just your own personal preference, are you thinking what country are you thinking? For you, just I'm coming over and you want to put something out. Are we going Italy? Are we going Spain? Are we going France?
Um,
what are you reaching for?
if it hasn't been apparent already, I'm a Cru Beaujolais guy for like that. If I really
Yeah.
want to impress you, I'm going to pour you some beautiful Cru Beaujolais from Breajolais, Morgon. Really great light to medium bodied reds that can handle the chill. But I'm not
Okay.
going to make them ice cold, ice cold. But like they can handle a good dunk in an ice
R-
bucket.
Got it.
Um,
Got it.
your
And throw
dog.
some grapes in it. Yeah, my dog approves. My dog approves of that and hates the golden retriever that's going up the street. All right, cool. All right, so you want to dip into the white world?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, and that just opens up everything then, right? I mean, so we speak of a hierarchy of grapes, right? So like
Hmm.
that, if you like, and by the way, there's this amazing uh grape varietal chart it's a mock-up of the periodic chart of elements,
Oh yeah.
and it's made by DeLong, DeLong. He's a British guy. Steve DeLong. I met him years and years ago in New York. His maps, by the way, his wine maps are gorgeous.
Oh
And
yeah.
the periodic chart, I've given it to friends, and they hang it on their dining room walls because it looks amazing. And it
Wow,
has
that's
the
great.
lightest grapes all the way up to the heaviest reds. And then he has these beautiful maps. And some of the two most clever ones I love are subway maps of France and California. So it's a
Yeah.
mock-up of a New York subway map, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all the
yeah.
regions with all the stops and the
Oh, that's great.
express, and it's so smart. But he's ever evolving more and more beautiful wine maps. But the
That
periodic chart of grapes is really good.
yeah, that periodic one is this is are there that many grapes that
Yeah.
that it seems kind of comparable to the periodic chart?
Um,
Like
I would say if I had to guess, it's been a long time since I've seen it. There
yeah,
are over 400 grapes listed.
really?
Yeah. And he didn't just, it's not willy-nilly. I mean, by the way, Tom,
Yeah.
I just taught these two classes this weekend in Aspen, and there's 600 grapes available in Spain alone and over 400 in Italy. But yet
What?
the world only knows probably about, 10% of Spanish grapes and 20% of Italian grapes, but
Sure. Wow.
600 in Spain,
That's
600 grapes.
amazing.
It's
That's
crazy.
amazing.
So this
All being
chart,
processed into wines.
yeah, if whether it's very esoteric in
Yeah.
micro doses.
Right. This is weird, but we're gonna make wine out of it anyway. It's like people in college making bongs out of out of Coke bottles.
We talked about that in one of my classes. I said, if I said, who here likes Malbec? And everyone raised their hand. And I said, some people raised their hands. And I was like, so how do you feel about Bordeaux? And they were like, I don't like Cab. And one person said, I'm not a Cab fan. You just asked me about Malbec. I'm like, the five red grapes, the official, five grapes of Bordeaux are Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. I'm like, Malbec, nobody knows that Malbec is used. It's not from Argentina. It's from
Right.
Bordeaux. But I said, but they only use maybe 1 or 2%, if at all,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very persnickety and prone to mold when it grows at sea level.
Right.
which is Bordeaux. But in Argentina, at 5,000 feet in the Andes, it grows magnificently. So
Beautiful.
I'm not a funny guy like you, but I did call it the Evita Peron of grapes. Thrown in the gutter in Bordeaux and rose to be
And
the
Rose
queen
in
of Argentina.
It's good. I like that. All right, so for someone like myself who is who kind of has a weird a weird distaste for white wines, open up my mind.
I would ask the first question I would ask you is, do you mind oak or you prefer no oak?
I like oak.
You like oak. Okay.
Mhm.
So that disqualifies a lot of the whites I was about to suggest.
But let's be honest, that's just a kind of a knee-jerk reaction of something I've had at one time.
I think also because
I haven't explored white really much at all.
You're a big red guy. You're used to oak, so that's
right.
there's a complete parallel right across, right?
Sure.
So by the way, you would love big, rich, delicious Burgundy, white Burgundy. So Chardonnays that have seen oak, and there's a fine line, Tom, because of our we're old enough to remember when the oaky California Chardonnay was the standard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people still live in that stereotype and say, "Oh, I don't like oaky Chardonnays," and I'm like, but they're not all oaky. And there's levels of oaky that are really real oak and elegant, or there's cheap wines that use oak tea bags, if not other. Oh, I'm not kidding. Like other tricks to make them quote unquote oaky. Oh yeah, oak tea bags. Absolutely, they shred like the Christmas tree shredder. They shred oak barrels that are old, and then they put them in cheesecloth bags, and they dip them in the barrel, and they're stainless steel barrels, so that they could give a little oakiness. And in some countries, that's completely fine.
Sounds soulless, though.
It's awful, totally awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say this, Tom, to most people who say I don't like Chardonnay. Categorically, I hate Chardonnay. I'm like, can I beg you to think about this before you say that again? At every party you go to, every wedding you go to, even your friends who are generous but don't have good taste in Chardonnay, most Chardonnays are cheap. Most people buy cheap Chardonnay. It's literally the filler at every wedding, every corporate event. There's always a cheap Chardonnay.
You're right.
If you would only spend 25 or 30 bucks on a great Chardonnay, and here's the one that I could completely cure you with. If I pour you a Chablis. Chablis is a village in Burgundy where we could say Chardonnay might have been born. We have like, we could find it back to like 1080. Wow. And it's one of the few villages in Burgundy where the Chardonnay is oak free. So it's clean, crisp, minerally unadulterated Chardonnay.
Right.
And let's start that as our baseline. Then as soon as you leave Chablis and go to other villages in Burgundy, you're going to start to see a little more oak. But the oak is judiciously used and crafted a certain way and toasted a certain way so that it's not so overwhelming. Right. We here in the New World went a little cuckoo in the 90s with the oak, and that just ruined the party for a lot of people. And then it became commodified. Like every Chardonnay, it's like picture them like in a factory, like pushing the buttons, like oak butterscotch toast, and it all just goes into the wine. It's terrible.
Yeah, my wife actually, we were at dinner the other night, and she said to the waitress, she goes, "I want a Chardonnay that's a little buttery, that's a little butter." And I remember even hearing that when I was younger, like that was oaky and buttery and that kind of thing. And she was always, she had moved to like Pinot Grigios and stuff like that, but then had this feeling for going back to the Chardonnay, and she was like really enjoyed it. Like she really enjoyed this.
Yeah. And that's funny, Tom, because Pinot Grigio on the spectrum of body is one of the lightest. I like to call that, it's the wallflower at the dance. And Pinot Grigio really doesn't have a lot to say. It doesn't offend, it doesn't harm, it doesn't insult. It really just hangs out there in the background. And that, by the way, Pinot Grigio lovers will all be writing to you now, tell me what a jerk I am. But I always say, like, Pinot Grigio is great. Pinot Grigio is good. If you don't know what else to do, you start here. Just start at Pinot Grigio. And then we're gonna click it up a little bit with it, the next level up, I poured a Suave recently. So Suave from Northern Italy, right? From the Veneto.
Rico Suave?
Rico Suave. That when in our day, that's what we would make the joke about it, right? But Suave, I was pouring PRA is the producer, PRA Suave. And it's a fantastic value for like $18. And on the website, the winemaker says it, he's like, we crafted this specifically for Pinot Grigio lovers to know that there is something better.
Really?
Well, and because don't forget, they're in the same region as Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio is from the
Yeah.
same area, and they
Oh, I
couldn't
see.
stand how insipid, because Pinot Grigio, by its popularity, was then dulled down into they all have to taste like nothing. It's a
Ah.
competition to win the market for people who want nothing. I want to get buzzed. I want to feel sophisticated holding a glass of wine, but I don't want
Yeah.
anything. I don't want to know. I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to be
Okay, so
challenged.
for you, because you've got good taste, for you, when
Oh,
you go the opposite of that, when you are in the white wine world
yes.
and you've got Pinot, which is doing nothing, and you're looking for that something, can you describe what that something is that makes you the happiest?
The something is super juiciness. Like think of, oh my God, my friend Andrea Robinson. She's a master somm. I used to work for her at Windows on the World back in the 90s.
Mm.
I helped her write her first book, which was Wine and Food Made Simple. And she had this brilliant phrase for describing what we both loved in a lot of wine, but especially in whites: shirt staining fruit. It's like the super ripe summer plums that when you bite into them, you don't realize how juicy they're going to be, and they run
Yeah.
down your shirt, like right down your
Right.
face. It's like, so if you lean over the sink to eat these the
Yeah.
ripest summer plums, think of like the ripest summer fruit, beautiful peaches, white peaches. I
Yeah, I
want
just did
all
that
that.
yesterday with a peach, just exploded
Yeah.
all over me.
So
Yeah.
I love like, so we call that like that super juicy ripe fruit. I love that
That's a
in a
great
wine. And of course,
description.
how I want it, of course, I want acid to underpin it all so that you have the burst of fruit, and then
Hmm.
acid's going to come in and refresh you, and then more fruit. So waves and waves of fruit and acid, fruit and acid. That to
Right.
me is the ultimate white wine experience. And I'm a big fan of white Rhone red. So you love the Rhones. You just mentioned the Rhones earlier before. You said, I think you
Right.
said shut up to pop. So
Yeah.
Tom, nobody knows about the white Rhones that are hiding in plain sight in every wine shop. And
Oh.
you just call it Cote. You've heard of Cote du Rhone. So
Yeah.
remember Beaujolais Village is
Yep.
all of the villages. Cote du Rhone is all of the cotes, meaning it could be from anywhere within the Rhone, the southern Rhone. And so
Uh-huh.
Cote du Rhone is all of our favorite grapes: Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. On the red side, they
Right.
call them the GSMs in Central Coast of California and all over Australia. Beautiful Rhone blends. And
Yep.
I like to call them the juicy middle because they're not as light as Pinot Noir and Gamay, and they're not as massive as Cabernet and company, right? They're the juicy middle.
Hmm.
The whites are the same way. Marsanne, Roussanne, and Viognier blended together. They're gorgeous, 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 gorgeous whites. And you'll find them also in Alsace, France, under the label of the general category called Gentil, but it's spelled gentle, Gentil, but it's Gentil from Alsace, France, are blends of all the great whites, including like Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. They're all in there. These beautiful, juicy, unctuous,
Right.
really high acid whites that are fabulous in the summer.
Oh, that's great. This is the first time I've ever talked to anyone where I've been excited about white wine.
There we go. There we go. There we
Really? I
go.
mean, you're very good, Anthony. You're very good at
Thank you.
describing this stuff.
Thank you, bud.
Yeah, it's like, oh, then what's my problem? I like juicy fruit with a little acid to it. Why not?
So at the next wedding, you're not getting the Pinot Grigio. And the cheap
Yeah.
Chardonnay.
Yeah, and I could be out on the patio and not without a giant hot bottle of Cabernet.
Right. You'll open your cooler and pull out your frozen grapes for everyone and be the star of the party.
Yeah, right. Oh, I know. That's going to be really impressive when I can break those out. The when you were in Aspen and you were what was the center of your talk this year?
So they gave me two. One was called Secrets of Spanish Wine.
Oh,
And then the other one was it was called Italy Off the Beaten Path. So because like, and Tom, I say this every year. It was actually called Italy's Hidden Gems Off the Beaten Path.
uh-huh.
Every classic, it seems, for I don't know, at least the last 10 years, I always get the Italian seminars. I could pitch the greatest Rhones, the Cru Beaujolais. And I actually have done them in the past, but it always comes back to Anthony. Everyone wants to hear you speak about Italian wine. So I was like,
Stay in your lane,
I am
Anthony.
ethnically profiled as the Italian wine expert, even though I just explained to you all these French wines that I love. So
Yeah,
I certainly love
yeah.
Italian wine, but what's the phrase? My teeth. I cut my teeth. I
Hmm.
cut my teeth on French wine because I learned
Right.
from French master sommeliers, and they taught us rigorous curriculum about French wine to learn about how everything is classified and why and the who and the what. And the truth is, most other countries in the world follow the French system of
Right.
classification, or at least try to. And then I would say that all of us in America speak French grapes. Every grape everybody loves is from France. I mean, that's nobody makes the connection. And I say, everyone in this room name a grape, and I write them on the whiteboard. And then I'm like, pretend we're looking at an airline magazine where all the routes from JFK and LAX, all grapes in the U.S. all lead to France, except the exception Riesling maybe. And if you're a geek and you know like Gruner Veltliner or Zweigelt from Austria, but in common parlance, we all speak French. So their legacy here is so heavy on us.
Why is that? Because we're the same latitude as those regions?
Not really. I mean, not especially here in New York. And Virginia lines up pretty well with Bordeaux, but no, it's because of by fluke of geography, their grapes actually adapt well elsewhere. We Italians, our Italian grapes, Tom, are xenophobes like our Italian guests. They don't like anything but their own.
Right.
You know, don't make me pasta because I don't want your pasta. I want my pasta. So, so Italian grapes don't do well here. I mean, like the Antinoris from Tuscany spent billions trying to grow Sangiovese in California and gave up. They make now beautiful they make beautiful Cabernet.
It just didn't work.
I did hear a rumor that Spanish Tempranillo is doing well in Texas. But I have not gone down to investigate.
Interesting.
I have to check it out. But in general, most of the grapes that have done really well around the planet, and Chardonnay, by the way, is the big whore of the world. I mean, it's happy everywhere. Everywhere Chardonnay. You could plant Chardonnay in your gutters on your roof line, and it will come cascading down and give you fruit.
Always looking for a good time.
Chardonnay and Cabernet is pretty prolific too. They're pretty prolific too. But
Cabernet is tough. Yeah. So what did you find? Is there anything you can tell me about off the beaten path in Italy that you?
So I poured a Suave. So I just mentioned to you that I poured a different Suave. So for Aspen, as you would expect, I have to aim a little higher price wise than my favorite $10 and $15 and $20 wines. But so there was a beautiful one called Suavia for $30. Suave Classico from a specific vineyard called Monte Carbonari. So that's way up in the Veneto. Gorgeous wine. From Piedmont, where everyone expects Barolo and Barbaresco, I poured a white called Timorasso, and you're going to see more and more of it. I'm predicting it, and I'm guessing that it's true because it was brought back from near extinction, and a lot of the big producers up there threw their money behind it and are and we're like, so for instance, there were only I think. I don't know, 12 or 14 vines alive 20 years ago, and now there's over 275 acres. Like, it's crazy how much it's grown.
How is it?
Oh, it's delicious, and it's my jam. It's got a little bit of that juicy ripe fruit, but there's a great line of spice too, like a little bit of a Gewürztraminer in there too. It's a really beautiful wine, and for $65 it better be. But it was made by Borgogno, so one of the great Barolo producers of the world, who a few years back in Aspen, I poured a Borgogno 82 Barolo that they happily donated to our seminar and gave me a case of it, and it was spectacular. It was like $600 a bottle. This is $65 for the white, and I was happy to take it. So Borgogno, and it's called Dertona, Derthona, which is the Roman name for the region. Alto Adige, we went up to the Alps, part of eastern Italy. And we tasted from one of the great winemakers of that area, Martin Hofstadter. His company, his wine is called J. Hofstadter, and this is where this is Austro-Italian Italy. So like they speak German there. It's on the border of the Austrian Alps, and he is known for his Pinot Noirs, really famous Hofstadter Pinot Noir. But this is his Gewürztraminer from a specific vineyard called Kobenhof, and he said, if this were a French white Burgundy, it would be Grand Cru. So, like you just asked before, this would be a top vineyard. And that was $45.
Right. We're gonna have to write some of this stuff down for our listeners.
I'd be happy to give you the whole list.
That would be great.
A list of everything. Do you want me to keep going?
Just because it's you're like, oh, I like that, and then 2 seconds later, you're like, but I like that too, and then you think, and then you come away with nothing.
I would be happy to send you guys a list of a lot of what we talked about, if I could just remember what we talked about.
Do you find in summertime that it's mostly is it the food that lends itself to white wine, or do you think it's just the temperature? I guess we're eating a lot more fish, right? Like your friends with the oysters.
I think it's absolutely temperature.
Yeah.
And especially where we're from, humidity. We crave acid. I mean, that's, there's no secret to lemonade. I mean, like, although not the canned garbage, but like really good lemonade is made with a ton of acid. I mean, hopefully not too sweet, but that's the genesis of that idea. Like the acid is just a thirst quencher. That's why I look for it in wine. That's what we always like. That's like the be all end all of great white wine is how does the acid balance all of that fruitiness? Pinot Grigio, not so high in acid. I mean,
you're not going to satisfy you. Right.
But it's not going to offend you either, though, Tom. It's not going
to. Yeah, you're not going to be mad. You're like, I just drank some wine.
Or warm water. I mean, really, it's pretty much the same.
Man, I can't get the picture of, and I know because I just had some the other night, and they were a different shape than I'm used to on the East Coast because I was out here in LA. But just the picture that you painted of that couple having the oysters with the bottle of champagne and the bottle of what was the other bottle?
It was a bottle of Breajolais, which is one of the Cru Beaujolais.
Oh, that picture, God, that's gonna linger with me all day.
Yeah,
that is a treat.
Let's do it when you come back to New York, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good. I had these oysters, like I said, and they were, I'm used to the East Coast, the little bigger, flatter. These were kind of almost like little cups.
Exactly right. Yeah, and they're very soft and creamy. The West Coast in general. I mean, I'm not an oyster expert, but when given the choice, I like my briny, firmer East Coast oysters from up north.
Yeah, they had a little more something to it. It was a little like, a little. But I was drinking red, and I knew, I was like, there's a better wine with with these oysters right now.
It's gonna be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was just by the glass. What do you do when you go out with your wife and you're like, oh, we should get this bottle, and your wife's like, I'm not really drinking tonight.
This could cause wars if we go down to, I know they never.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot. And I say to my wife, we're Ubering and I'm drinking more than you. And it's just gonna happen.
Right.
And we're not gonna worry about it. We're not gonna judge. We're not gonna judge, but we need a bottle. So Tom, when I say, and it is a big problem, especially if you're the white wine drinker and she's the red wine drinker, or vice versa. You can't even agree on what to buy. But I have said this since, like, I swear it's one of the first things I wrote as a sommelier. Like, please stop buying wine by the glass. It's like it's the best and worst advice, because you're being completely robbed unless you're at a really good restaurant that's not just trying to make a cash cow out of the wines by the the wines by the glass. Tom, I mean, I look at the list and I'm like, oh my God, $4. That's what they're paying wholesale for those bottles, and then they're selling them to you for $12 a glass. So let's just
easily,
right. So
like 20, anything from Italy with a B, starting with a V, you're paying $25 a glass.
If it ends in AIA, you're paying 40.
Yeah, I know.
So yes, like I say that, let's just do some math. It's fun math. So you and I, Tom, we are lying to ourselves. We're going out for one glass. We're lying. We're completely lying to ourselves. We go out, we're going to have one glass, and we spend, let's call it $15 a glass, right?
Okay.
But the bartender is immediately going to put down a bowl of fiddle faddle, salty nuts. If it's a little fancy, maybe some gougères. But they're salting us up. They are priming the pump. Now, we're at $30, and we bought 2 glasses of wine from a bottle that probably costs even generously $10, right? And there are 5 5-ounce glasses in that bottle, so they're going to make 15 times 5, right? And all we have to do is say, let's just be honest, because we're going to have a second glass now. Now we're at 60. We are at $60 for a $10 bottle, and we don't get the 5th glass for free, because there's 5 if we'd bought the bottle for 60.
Right.
So instead, look at the list and just literally like look at the prices and buy the second. The joke is that you buy the second cheapest, and it's the sommelier favorite, which I don't really know if that's true or not, but
right.
But you
is
can't
that pretty
go wrong.
accurate? You think? Is that pretty accurate?
I would like to think the sommelier likes a lot of the wines on the list.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It depends where you are, I guess.
Yeah, the rule is they say pick the second cheapest is often the wink if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I also say to the bartender too, like, listen, we're probably going to have 2 or 3 glasses, but like we'll get a bottle, but steer us in the right direction over if you don't know what you're doing or whatever. But
yeah,
or ask the waiter to come over. But if let's say Tom, you're on a business trip and you are going to have the 1 glass or maybe 2, and you can't get a bottle, you have every right to ask the bartender, like, hey, can you open a fresh bottle? Like, can you chill that for me too? Because the red is going to be warm. The reds are going to be sitting on the bar with the bourbon, literally as warm as the bourbon. Like, for what? Like, can you please pour me something chilled and fresh, please?
I think
they're going to sell the rest
all the
of
time because I'll open a bottle at home and you don't get to it and cork it up, and the next day it's not the experience that you had on that first day. And in a restaurant, it's like you don't know how long that's been sitting up there. It could be 2-3 days old.
Although, Tommy, I'm going to blow your mind on this one. We call it the meatloaf effect. That often when you open a bottle and take a glass or 2 out of it, and then put the cork in and put in the fridge, it will actually develop something, like it'll open, but slowly. It's not going to completely oxidize. The next day, let it warm back up again. It'll be great. Like 1 day of an open bottle, but that's it. That's all you get is 1 chance to try it again. Don't keep opening and closing it. But yeah, we joke that that's like a meatloaf thing. Like it gets, it's like all those things that get better after a day in the fridge.
Oh, so you think it's even better than the first?
It'll be more open and it'll probably be a little better. Yeah, I won't be passé, that's for sure.
Wow, I've been doing my wife got me that thing with the
Coravan,
with the
Coravan. I have it right here, right next to me.
Yeah, because this bottle, I don't know if you could see this. What I had.
Oh,
last
now
night.
I can. Yeah.
And it's I only took out 1 big healthy glass out of it, and this is a really nice bottle.
Hold on, that's 1 glass will you show me?
Yeah,
it's half a bottle.
It's half a bottle. That was 1 glass last night. That was 1 pour. Because I was with my wife and she was like, she didn't want to drink because she just traveled, and I was like, well, I'm not just going to keep pounding, so I'm just going to do 1 big one, and then she won't see me going back and forth.
You have that. Remember, like the early pandemic, Ina Gartner was like, I think we all could use a drink, and I'm going to start right now. And she had like a 5-gallon wine glass in front of her. It was like half her body. It's so good.
It's so funny. Yeah. So but it really does work. I mean, that thing.
Yeah. Those the Vacuvin. I'm sorry, not Vacuvin. It's Coravan is so good. Coravan, Vacuvin. By the way, I use Vacuvin a lot too. Like those little rubber corks you pump. They work really, really well. But Coravan is the beyond next level.
Yeah.
And again, have you been at the restaurants where they ask you if you'd like to try tonight's Coravan special? No. And it's like, we have Chateau Margaux for $300 for an ounce, and if people are like, well, I'm gonna get it because I'll never buy Chateau Margaux for 5,000, so I'll take a shot for 300 or whatever the math is. I used to see that a lot, but pre-pandemic, I would see that in like the Nomad, and they'd be like, tonight we have a Polini Montrachet for blah 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 blah, and it's $95 for half an ounce. I'm like, who is buying that? Like,
it's so stupid.
I would need 4 half ounces just to taste it.
Yeah. I think the best lesson I learned for the summer so far is just Uber and tell your wife you're getting the bottle.
She always says that to me. She's like, I really feel like drinking. I'm like, we're Ubering. There's no need to even acknowledge what each of us is drinking because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, and it also, you don't go out all that often, and when you do sneak out, it's like you should enjoy it, and you are going to enjoy it. So why bring the car?
Well, I got to say that really is a game changer for me, especially where we live. We could Uber. You can get cars coming every 3 minutes. It's just crazy. So like I just choose not to drink and drive ever. I mean, like, oh, if it's a 1 glass, like I don't want to take that risk anymore. Like I know when I was young, I was stupid. But
no, I know. I know. We're both wearing glasses. I know. At night, straight as an arrow. I'm like, this is getting riskier.
I can't wait for self-driving cars, Tom. I just want the car to take me everywhere. I don't even want to.
Oh my God! Just
I'm the opposite of the guys who are like, oh, are you kidding me? I love a great drive. I'm like, nope, no. I'd like to be in the back, please, reading the New Yorker. I'll talk to you when we get there.
Yeah, I'm all for like a nice stick shift, 1 race around the block, but every day, no. I want the experience to be what's going to happen when I get to the restaurant, not the experience from my door to the restaurant.
some friends of mine are headed to Sicily tomorrow, and I said, "Do you have a driver?" And they're like, "Oh, they were on a." My friend made my tour partner that I work with made them an agenda, and they said, "No, of course Gary has a driver taking us everywhere, like we're little baby veal, like just carefully tended to." And they said, so I said, "Oh, you're lucky because driving around Sicily is a nightmare. Like, dude, you're on these highways that are like, you're on these like bridges that are like 2 miles off the ground, and like you're going around cliffs and through a million those tunnels they call the Galleria. It's a white knuckle experience that I have no desire to ever repeat. We go every summer practically, so
wow.
I need a driver, Tom.
I need a driver too. I need to get to Sicily. I've
You
never
haven't been
to Sicily, no.
Oh man, come on my tour next summer, next June.
Yeah, maybe I will. How many people? I don't like being
we
with
keep
a lot
it we
of
keep it
people.
small. No, we keep it small. We're very
You do?
bougie. It's like around 14, 16 people.
That's a lot.
No, well, you can't make any money if you do less than that. But it's
Could I come and just follow the tour, like stay 2
sure,
feet behind?
sure. It'll be the Fiat behind the van. I get it.
I have to thank you, by the way, and this is a little bit of a plug, but a plug I'm happy to make because this is legit, and this is I love when these things happen. You have a product that we talked about last time, Super Salt, which is this great. If we can talk a little bit about how you got into it, but you created this amazing. What would I say? Like a spicy salt?
It's a seasoned salt, like herb salt. Yeah,
it has all of the great rosemary fun goodness of that you want when you're cooking, plus the salt, all in this one thing called Super Salt. And you were generous enough to send some my way after we did the pod, and we use it all the time. I put it on everything, and and I bake my bread. And yesterday I had I toasted the bread. I put just a thin thing of cream cheese, sardines, and capers.
Oh my God!
And then sprinkled a little of the Super Salt on top. Oh man, Anthony,
Nice.
you really this thing should be big. Like this is gonna be this really like this is gonna be. You should be like rich off of Super Salt.
It's well, I hope someday. The joke is that the company name is Side Gig Super Salt. So like I call it my side gig and play on my last name, but like it's really something that was just born in my kitchen, and I used to bring it to friends, and they all said, "You need to jar this, you need to sell this." And it took years before I finally pulled it together and had help from a lot of great friends and consigliere. But so like but it is one of those things where people say, "What do I do with it?" And I say, well, let's start with something simple, like fry an egg in the morning and put it over the top, and you won't believe what it does. Or butter, bread and butter, or things like that. Make a vinaigrette. Every roasted vegetable, every fish, every meat. But just be judicious at first because it's powerful. But then once you get used to it, you keep adding more. People just keep going through jars of it. It's crazy.
That's the thing is like you said that when you gave it to me, you're like it was almost like you handed me a weapon. You were like, just be careful. Keep the safety on. Don't go nuts. I was like a little intimidated at first. But man, now I just sprinkle it on everything because we have like this little section in our kitchen where we keep like the olive oil and the salts and the peppers, and my daughter has like these different Himalayan salts and stuff, and it's just part of the roster now. I am just a light sprinkle of that on everything. Oh, it's so really, Anthony. I mean,
so appreciate.
This is not a paid endorsement. I'm not doing this just because you're my friend. No, I really love that. I love that stuff.
I am thrilled. I'm thrilled to hear it. It's been it's been doing pretty well this year because it's the first year I'm really selling it like with gusto and trying to get it into all different markets all over the country and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I was always afraid that people would use too much of it and then be turned off. Like, like just go gentle with it because it's so potent. It's a ton of garlic and sage are my two. And I say, Tom, it speaks Southern Italian. There is garlic. Yeah. There is a lot of garlic in it, but it dries in the salt. So like the process is to chop everything and then cut it into the salt and let it come together, and you get this super, super fragrant salt. When you open the jar, it's like aromatherapy.
Yeah, it really is great. I just sprinkle it everywhere now. It's crazy. Between you and I also had a friend on who has a Simone olive oil, and it's just this great olive oil. And just between the two of you, I'm now just like it doesn't even factor in like, does this go with this? I just put it on everything. It's like what Americans do with ranch dressing.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So good.
All right. Any last last tips to make our listeners seem cool this summer? We've got some great reds. I'm going to put a list up, but we got some great reds. We got a good grape twist. We've got some good whites. Is there anything that we didn't mention that if someone wants to really enjoy themselves and
oh gosh,
any kind of
I feel like
what's your favorite? What's your favorite? Why don't I phrase it this way? You're hanging at home. It's just you, your family, and maybe a friend who has a podcast happens to roll through town and comes just over for a cocktail hour, which may extend into dinner. What little summer snackies do you put out, and what wine do you break out?
Oh gosh. Well, believe it or not, like I'm a big champagne fan. Like I love when friends come over, like we never see, and to say like it makes everyone feel grand when it's, pull out some good champagne. Pull out the ice bucket. I have like the the trophy looking ice bucket that you see at every wedding. Like you pulled it on the counter, and then we put out as many salty, savory snacks as we could find, including like you just said, like there might be some anchovies. There's always going to be a hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese or other salty, great cheeses like Manchego or Gouda or Mimolette or something like that. They're going to just be really, really good and rich.
Gouda and Mimolette, by the way, those are my two favorite cheeses.
Really? See that? I mean,
other than of course, the Parmigiano Reggiano, yeah. But for just like snacking on, those two, my God,
salted, good salted nuts, almonds, things like that, and a mind blow. Here it is. I just realized what I want to say. So when I was in Venice 20 years ago, when I was just 30 years ago, when I was getting started, early 90s, I was invited to Francesco Bolla of the Bolla family had a cocktail party, and they were passing around these platters with these very ornate, which I don't think you should have to take so seriously, but like picture like crumbling Parmigiano into nuggets, like into crumbs, right? Like you don't cut them perfectly, you just pull them down, you pull with the point of a knife,
break them with a fork.
Yeah, and they would stab a toothpick with dried fruits, so like a dried cherry, dried apricot or mango or anything, so for color variety, and then right into the cheese, and then you would take the whole thing and take a bite, and you have salty and super sweet come together, and then a sip of sparkling wine, and it just all that acid just clears the palate, like it's like scrubbing bubbles. It's amazing. And you could do that, by the way, and that Bolla was using a prosecco for sure, but you could do that with great champagne as well too, and it's just mind-blowing.
Champagne or prosecco for you? Champagne.
So I like to say this, I have room for both of them in my my house, but they shouldn't be compared even remotely. If they're in the fruit family, one's an orange and one's an apple. It's not two types of apples, because champagne is made in the bottle, second fermentation in the bottle. It's very, very painstaking to make. Prosecco was invented as a means of giving an alternative to expensive champagne, and it's a bulk produced in tanks and then bottled under pressure, and they're sold immediately. So the big difference is not only like price and production. Prosecco is all about immediacy, super fruity, super fresh, made probably within the last 3 months. Champagne by law has to age in those bottles, the second fermentation, after the second fermentation, they have to age for at least 2 years by law before they're put in the market. And they taste older. It's so funny, Tom, because people want to love the champagne when you pour them side by side. But they're not used to, if you're used to drinking Prosecco and fresh sparkling wines like most Americans, you taste the champagne, you're like, tastes a little old. And it's like, right. And that's actually deliberate. They want the age. And in really good champagne, it's layers of brioche and mushroom and all this crazy stuff. But that's something you have to want. Most of us are handed a glass of sparkling wine that's probably Prosecco, and every waiter in America says champagne. And I always say to everybody, ask politely, really? Because it's probably not. It is
Yeah,
probably
when the
not.
flight attendant comes out and they say orange juice, water, champagne, that's
It's
probably
always Prosecco.
it's always
always
Prosecco.
Prosecco.
Jeez,
It
I
happened
never
this
knew
week
that.
on the plane. I just saw it this week
Yeah.
on the plane. The guy was
Yeah.
like, "Who goes? Jesus, nobody wants Prosecco. What's wrong with you people? I mean, nobody wants champagne. What's wrong with you people?" I'm like, "Well, it's not champagne. That's what's wrong with you people. It's Prosecco.
All right,
Totally different."
final question, because at a certain point when we had a New Year's Eve and had a little extra money, we got, like back when we were starting out in New York, and we got Veuve Clicquot in the orange box, and we haven't really explored any champagne past that. We always think, well, it's going to be good champagne. I guess we'll just get a bottle of Veuve. Give me another label.
I want to give you something easier. So, Tom, by the way, I want to stop and just say, I can give you a name, right?
Okay.
And then everybody on this pod is going to listen to it and go to their shop, and the shop is going to say, "I don't have that," because there's 50 states with 50 completely different rules, right?
Yeah.
I would say use the phrase grower champagne. It's a thing. It's a real thing.
Champagne.
A grower champagne means something that's super small production from an artisan who's just making beautiful, very limited supply. Some of my favorite are Pierre Peters, Vilmar, Vilmart, Vilmar at C-E-T, and then a capital C. Like, those are great examples of beautiful grower champagnes. But just, if you went to a shop and just said, "Listen, I want to dial into something super special. Do you have any grower champagne?" They're gonna, of course, if you're used to paying, 40 to 50 for Veuve Clicquot, you have to be prepared to spend more than probably 70, 80, 90 bucks for good champagne.
Got
a good
it.
grower champagne, if not 150. If you come to my house, Tom, you spend the 150, right?
Right, of course. That's why it's at your house, not mine.
No, I meant you're bringing it to my house.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you're coming over and I say,
I would love to, but I travel with a carry-on. They don't let you bring liquids. It's got to be on you. Anthony, this is the best. You got to come on more often.
No, you're the best, Tom. You're the best.
It's so cool. And I encourage people to, we're going to put the list up, and this is a great, you've given us so much good stuff to enjoy the summer, and everybody out there, go get some super salt. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
What about super salt on corn?
Are you kidding me? Of course. But the trick would be unsalted butter. If you're going to use butter, unsalted butter, because that would be way too much.
Too much. Yeah. They were getting crazy. Anthony, good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to see you at the tomato party.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's going to be fun.
All right, buddy. Take care, man.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. That was Anthony. What are you going to do? Are you going to go out and do it? Are you going to go pick up some Chablis? Are you going to go get some Gamay? Are you going to go get some Breajolais, some oysters, sit poolside, throw some grapes, some frozen grapes into your wine? Why not? Sounds like a good way to celebrate. I think I'm going to do it right now. I really am. I'm going to go right now and spend money on wine. Thank you so much for listening. Again, go to tompapa.com. We're touring all over the place. Thank you all for being here once again. Like and subscribe and tell all your pals. Thank you for growing the community. This is really fun to do, and I hope we learned something today. I feel like we did. And we should also, I said I was going to list some of the things that Anthony talked about. I will try and do that. Me, my producers, we will try to write it down, at least a couple things, and put it in as part of the description, so it'll be a little easier for you to go out and get stuff. All right, you guys are the best. Enjoy your life.